Good morning, children. Today in EVS, we are going to do the 10th chapter, Weather and Climate. So, first of all, let's do the reading of the chapter. Weather. Weather means how hot, cold, windy, cloudy, rainy, or sticky a day is. When we say this another way, the weather of a place on a day is a condition of the air around the place on that day. When the same kind of weather continues for weeks, we call it a season. Wind, when some part of the earth gets heated by the sun, the air around it gets hot. Hot air is lighter than cold air, so it rises. Cold air from cooler areas rushes in to take the place of the hot air. That is what causes wind. When the wind blows gently, we'll call it breeze. When it moves fast, it is known as there is a storm. Rain, hail, and snow. The heat of the sun makes the water of rivers, lakes, ponds, seas change into water vapor. The changing of water into water vapor is called evaporation. The water vapor rises with the hot air near the land. As it meets cooler air high above the ground, it changes into drops of water. The changing of water vapor into water is called condensation. The tiny drops of water float about in the air as clouds. When many of them join up and become heavy, they fall as rain. Sometimes raindrops pass through a very cold layer of air, then they freeze into little pellets of ice. When these pellets of ice reach the earth, we call them hailstones, and this frozen rain is called hail. Air gets cooler as you go up. Very high above the ground, it gets so cold that the water in the clouds freezes into crystals of ice. When the crystals join up and become heavy, they fall as snowflakes. Snow melts on its way down if the air near the earth is warm. That is why it snows only in very cold places. Fog, dew, and frost. On winter nights, the air above the ground gets cool enough for the water vapor in it to condense. The vapor condenses and forms a kind of cloud just above the ground. This is called fog. The fog lifts once the sun comes out and it becomes warmer. Leaves and grass cool after sunset. When they get cold enough, the water vapor in the air condenses over them. The tiny drops of water that form on leaves, grass, and other cold things outdoors are called dew. When the weather turns very cold, dewdrops freeze into crystals of ice. Frozen dew is called frost. Humidity. Humidity. On some days, the sweat on our skin does not dry and we feel sticky. Have you wondered why? It is because the air carry only a fixed amount of water vapor. When it is already full of water vapor, it cannot take any more. Then the sweat does not evaporate and the clothes take an age to dry. We call such days humid. Humid means damp. We also say that the humidity of the air is high. Now come to the topic climate. The climate of a place is the kind of weather it generally has. What makes a place have a certain kind of weather? One of the things is the amount of sunshine it gets throughout the year. The amount of sunshine a place gets depends on how far it is from the equator. Places near the equator get a lot of sunshine throughout the year. The rays of the sun fall directly near the equator, so these places are hot. The poles, on the other hand, get sunshine only for a part of the year. Besides, the rays of the sun slant near the poles, so they do not give a lot of heat. This is why the polar regions are very cold and covered with ice. The area around the North Pole is called the Arctic. The area around the South Pole is called the Antarctic. We call these areas frigid, cold zones. The area around the equator is hot, so we call it torrid zone. In between are the temperate zones. Temperate means neither too hot nor too cold. Our country lies in the torrid zone, so we have a warm climate. There are many other things on which the climate of a place depends. The height of a place is one. That means the climate of a place depends on whether it is in the hills or in the plains. For example, though most of our country has a very warm climate, places in the mountains have a colder climate. How climate affects us? Climate affects our lives in many ways. Here are some of them. Kinds of houses and clothes. You have already read that the kinds of houses people make depends on the climate. For example, houses have slanting roofs in places where it snows or rains heavily. People who live in cold places wear heavy woolen clothes. People who live in warmer places wear light loose cotton clothes. Plants and animals. The kinds of plants that grow naturally in a place depends on its climate. You will find forests of fir and pine trees in cool places. For example, similarly, palm trees only grow in warm places. The kinds of animals that live in a place also depends on its climate. Lions and elephants live in warm places. Polar bears and penguins live in polar regions. You will not find them near the equator. Crops. The kind of crops people grow also depends on the climate. Farmers in warm, rainy places grow rice because rice grows well in such places. Farmers in colder and drier places grow wheat. Similarly, people in colder places grow apples, plums, apricots, peaches, while people in warmer places grow oranges, bananas, and guavas. Our seasons and weather affect our lives. The kinds of clothes we wear, the food we eat depend on the seasons. For example, we get mangoes only in summer. Even day to day changes in weather affect our lives. No one plans a picnic on a rainy day. Fishermen do not go out to the sea when a storm is coming. Often, international matches get delayed because of the rain, and trains get delayed in winters due to fog. So, this is the reading of the chapter.